Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about a story out of Brooklyn, New York, in the Bedford-Stuyvesant area, where a man who was sitting at a bus stop waiting with his girlfriend ended up getting stabbed to death after he tried to talk to a criminal as he was actively committing a crime. And we not only are going to talk about this case on its merits, but we're also going to talk about the media reaction to this, specifically from the right-wing media and from the left-wing media, because I find it to be all rather disgusting. But before we get into that, I want to say thank you to everybody who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform. Now, I decided that I'm not actually going to show even the edited version of the video on this channel because seeing somebody in the moments before they die, to me, is not really a great thing, but I will describe to you what actually ended up happening. So in the beginning of the video, we can see our victim and his girlfriend waiting at the bus stop. Now, our victim is a man called Ryan Thoresen Carson, and there's actually a photo of him from hours before at the wedding, pictured with his girlfriend. Unfortunately, on this fateful evening, a black male that people identify as 18-year-old Brian Dowling ended up walking by, and he decided to start kicking over scooters or something to that effect, which caused Ryan Carson to try to talk to this individual in what can only be described as a complete and utter lack of threat assessment ability. Now, I didn't actually understand what happened because there was a cut in the viral video, but based on the text accounts, I can read you what happens in the gap in the video. Now, Ryan Thoresen walks a couple of steps close to him. Apparently, he might have said something to him because he was under the belief that this person who is actively committing a crime at 4 o'clock in the morning was in some kind of distress. This is what people are attributing to him, but I couldn't really make out that audio from the video. And then we see the man that the police are saying is Dowling, age 18, threaten to kill him, pull out a knife, and begin swinging the knife at him. Now, what's really horrific about this case is that you could see Carson trying to back away, trying to calm this person down, but he ultimately ends up tripping over the bus stop, according to the reporting, that he was sitting at the beginning of this whole situation. When he trips down, that's when Dowling, according to police, stabs him 3 times, including stabbing him in the heart. He then moves away from the scene, and his girlfriend is standing over him, and then he returns, spits in the girlfriend's face, and threatens to kill her. Now, when police arrested Dowling at his home, they discovered the sweatshirt that he was wearing, blood all over it, and the knife was still in the sweatshirt. And they're reporting that he has a past history as a disturbed individual, but also that his aunt actually called the police on him 2 months ago because he was destroying his girlfriend's property in an argument, and she felt like he was a significant threat. Now, this is an absolutely tragic story from front to back. You have Carson, who, by the way, is actually a year younger than myself, on his way back from a wedding. He's waiting at a bus stop, and it just so happens that this crazy criminal ends up in his area. He decides for whatever reason to take a couple steps towards him, and then when he tries to flee, he trips over a bus stop, and then he gets stabbed to death while he's on the ground, completely helpless. His girlfriend also could have easily been murdered in this situation. In fact, the killer threatened to murder her and spit in her face. And yet, a lot of people are hyper-focused on the fact that this guy was into a bunch of left-wing causes, as is his girlfriend, and therefore, they're somehow deserving of this or something like that, which honestly, I am not about. Now, it says Carson spearheaded liberal causes like creating supervised drug injection sites across the city. His girlfriend, according to now locked down social media profiles, was an avid BLM activist who, among other remarks, used cop-hating acronyms like ACAB in some of her posts. Now look, from what I can verify at this moment in time, this appears to be true, and I believe Carson actually worked at some environmentalist nonprofit, and he likely had a lot of progressive beliefs and whatnot. However, the way that this is being played up as like some form of comedy, like he got what he deserved, or wow, he actually believed his stupid liberal things, and that led to his death, I find to be rather disgusting and also completely counterproductive. Had he just been attacked and he ultimately ended up surviving, it is very possible, and we've seen this with actually prominent media figures like Anna Kasparian, for him to move in a more logical, rational direction on his political beliefs. The thing about life and experience is that it has possibilities. So the idea that we would kind of cheer on this person's death, and I'm not doing it, and I'm not saying everybody is doing it even intentionally, to me, is completely counterproductive and completely destructive. I don't want people in these left-wing cities, even if they have beliefs that I find to be completely asinine, to be killed by criminals just because they believe the wrong things. That's absurd, that's ridiculous, and that's not something that we should be taking up. And I understand that the girlfriend had the ACAB post, and I know that there is some reporting out there that the girlfriend refused to describe the suspect to police. However, I have not been able to verify that, and considering I see it on Twitter, and a lot of people intentionally post inflammatory stuff in order to go viral on Twitter, as of right now, I can't confirm that, and I can't even say that that is likely to be true, because as I said on this channel a bunch of different times, whenever you get a story that confirms your narrative to a T, you gotta fact check it 10 times, 20 times, 100 times, because it could just be what you already want to be believed being posted out there, especially for monetary gain on platforms like Twitter, where inflammatory claims definitely do spread and they get hyped. So you might be hearing that in a lot of places, but until such a time when that is verified, you can't really go based on that. Also, if she was not capable of giving an adequate description, I can actually understand that due to shock, because she didn't even really apply pressure, at least in the short clip that we saw, to her boyfriend's wounds in that situation, which is not a rational thing for somebody to do. But then again, her boyfriend was suddenly stabbed to death, and that is an irrational situation that oftentimes might lead to an irrational response. Hey guys, Editing Sean here. So I found out through my research that the report that the woman refused to give a description actually comes from this CBS New York affiliate that said that the NYPD did not have a description of the suspect, only that he was acting erratically. Now, I don't know if this means she refused to, but I want to put that out there and say, let's wait on the body cam footage if it's ever revealed so that we can know. Also of note, there was a black woman who was on the scene that apologized to the girlfriend after the stabbing had happened, and apparently she is a relative, reportedly the sister, although this is not confirmed, who fled the scene with the criminal. However, there's another quote, and these have been going around from his friends, that I also just can't get on board with. Their friends say he would consider his killer the victim of a broken system and would want his death to be used to continue advocating for social justice causes. Yeah, I'm not sorry to say this to his friends, but no, absolutely not. Ridiculous and absurd in every way. I understand that they're reportedly his friends. I understand that he was a political guy, he worked for a political organization, and he probably posted about and discussed his political positions on various issues to the public, but don't you dare call the person who stabbed this guy to death in an unprovoked incident, completely unjustified, after he fell on the ground when he was defenseless, a victim of a broken system. I don't give a damn about what went wrong in your life after you killed somebody. If you have problems that need to be addressed beforehand, then address those beforehand. But the only thing that indicates to me that we have a potentially broken system is that 2 months prior to this, the police were called for a domestic incident involving him and his girlfriend, and he was still out on the streets. He was destroying her property, obviously showing a dangerous pattern of behavior. His own relatives called the police on him, and yet he was walking the streets without issue. Now, we don't have his full extensive record. He's 18 years old, so if we're being honest, a lot, if any of it exists, is going to be sealed under the juvenile record, but chances are you don't just just wander around at 4 in the morning and decide to stab somebody for looking at you based on nothing, based on no prior indication. Chances are he got breaks for violence while he was in school. Chances are he got breaks from the legal system while he was under the age of 18. Chances are he got breaks similar to the one that he got in that domestic situation just 2 months prior to this incident. So I don't want to hear about how, oh, the system was broken and he's a victim. He's a perpetrator, and the system would only be broken if there was a chance to stop this person, get him off the streets prior to this incident, and they failed to do so. Also, and I want to mention this because for whatever reason, there are people who are coming after me on Twitter saying that we should have helped the killer, which I have no interest in doing. Whatever your problems are, I'm fine with talking about them until you kill somebody, then you're the problem. But the fact of the matter is, even the domestic violence thing, even if it was treated as a normal pre-bail reform domestic violence situation, on its own might not have been enough to keep this guy incapacitated to prevent him from committing this crime. The fact of the matter is, not every murder is due to a policy failure. Not every crime could have been prevented if the system worked a little better. Sometimes the first instance, the first sign, is something horrific like this, and then the onus is on us as a society to treat this with the seriousness that it deserves and incapacitate this individual so that he can't do this to another person. Now, there is also a GoFundMe that has been set up, and the GoFundMe's goal initially was $20,000. It's now at $66,000, and I will say, it's actually pretty questionable when you read the caption of it, and you realize it's being set up for his girlfriend and not necessarily for his family, and it doesn't really mention anything about funeral expenses, which, by the way, would be the obligation of the next of kin, not necessarily the girlfriend. But I want to read you guys the caption of this because I find it incredibly weird and odd and very questionable, especially right on the heels of the death of the boyfriend. Hi everyone, we are a collective of Ryan's close friends reeling from a brutal loss. We are asking for your help on behalf of his partner in easing the burden and stress of this horrifying situation so that we can give space and time to grieve. And remember Ryan. Immediate needs are to offset the costs of working class people taking time off of work to properly mourn. Now listen, I understand that these are left-wing people. I understand that some leftist gobbledygook is likely to be on anything that they're posting about this, but they're asking for money so that they could take time off for lost wages for somebody's funeral, as if when somebody dies in a tragedy like this, employers aren't normally understanding and allow people to go to the funeral. So this seems incredibly questionable and dubious. And again, this is for the girlfriend. This is not for the family, aka the people that you would expect to be obligated to pay for the funeral services of Carson. If you Google Ryan Carson, you'll hear and now see in parentheses about the tragedy that struck early Monday morning. But if you look past the breaking news, you'll see news on his legislative victories. You'll probably find his social media accounts filled with thoughts and memories, and you'll find collections of his artistic work to date. We hope you may find his thoughts on mutual aid, his works on advocacy, and understand that his radical principles of community care, justice, and dismantling an individualized, profit-centered way of life are worth carrying forward in our own communities. It is this time of remembrance and healing that will allow for reflection. We thank you in advance for any material support you can provide. In pain and gratitude, Ryan's friends. Again, nowhere in there is it mentioning any kind of support for his next of kin or for his funeral. It's not even put forward. It's all about his girlfriend and his community and his activism. And I have a real nasty feeling that in 6 months, maybe a year, I'm going to be doing a story about how this money is being fought over between the parties that set up the GoFundMe and between the girlfriend, because it doesn't appear there's any clear-cut goal on where it's supposed to go, on who is supposed to be helped, on if Ryan and his family are supposed to benefit from this by at least bare minimum having their funeral costs covered. Look, this is a sad story, but we need to be clear about a couple of things. First and foremost, the perpetrator in this instance is not the victim. cheering on or laughing at what went down in this scenario actually does nothing to produce positive change in the world, pointing out that yes, this guy had a bunch of beliefs, and yes, he was killed by a violent criminal who he might have, if he was alive, still thought of as a victim if it happened to somebody else, can be useful, but in reality, it would be much better, like it always is for society, for people to not be murdered in the streets, and for people who actually get victimized by crime to see how defanged the system is and maybe come towards our position. And we've seen it happen before with more notable left-wing figures than Ryan Carson. I really genuinely feel horrible for his family, especially since this GoFundMe situation appears like it is being set up in order to defraud people who are probably assuming that this is to cover funeral costs when it does not state that in any way, shape, or form. And I hope that justice is brought for Ryan Carson against the perpetrator. And I also hope we get positive change in our laws so that we can not have this happen again. But as for right now, that's all I really have for you guys today. Let me know what you think about this story down in the comments below. If you like this video, show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about a left-wing activist being killed, the media reaction and circus around it. Till next time.